9, the star-studded OTB AM Friday continues. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
You coloured. Have you been out just the Irish sun, or have you been out
Irish
enjoying
sun,
yourself? Get out of it, no chance. How's life?
Very good.
You didn't see your bud earlier on.
I did.
You used the word pragmatic in the ad break there, which was spot on about the defeat last weekend.
I suppose, yeah. I've spoke to him afterwards and on Sunday, and that's sport. It's disappointing. They're the hard yards for players.
Like, it's within
and coaches.
Your grasp. You're watching the game and you're like, Jesus, they're going to do it. It's you've got your hand on it, and then suddenly it's. And I
think obviously winning the Champions Cup and winning it last year as well. You know, you're very small margins there, and there's going to be disappointments in sport, and so he's got a big trophy, and La Rochelle have. Yeah. They were very close, so I think being pragmatic about it is, it's been a brilliant season for them. Obviously it could have been topped off. You know, they've never won the top 14. Toulouse, I think, have won it 23 times now or something like that in their history. The
last I saw was Anton Dupont down at the beach using the bouclier, the actual trophy, to surf into the water.
As you should do.
I was like,
fair play. This
thing is obviously just expected that you just horse it around and do what you want.
Yeah, it gets thrown around a little bit, but they're an incredible club, though, aren't they? Toulouse, you know.
Incredible.
We hear it a fair bit in sport, don't we? The teams know how to win, and you know,
they've come a long way.
It's more a belief thing, you know what I mean? And that's always the intrigue in sport. Even when your back is against the wall, you're getting, you know, probably physically out muscle a little bit. They haven't had many opportunities in the game, and you know, Intimac does what he did the other night. Incredible.
Does everything he does.
Yeah, but his performance in the game was quite poor. Yeah. He was really poor,
and that shouldn't be
very indecisive.
That shouldn't be forgotten. Like he pulled off a great move at the end there, but let's not forget about everything else that went on.
He missed touch when it matters.
But it matters if you're playing France in a World Cup game and he's at 10 and they've like.
Yeah, but
honestly, he fumbled the ball very late in the game. Very straightforward take, and then
history books won't remember
most out halves. How many times have you seen a kick to the corner, right, in the clutch moments of a game where you're going, geez, maybe the out half could have taken another yard or two, but they're not taking another yard or two because they know they can't test that line. That's headless stuff for a player that.
Johnny Sexton has missed him before. Bowden Bard has missed him.
I can't think of too many at that moment. I think it's very important.
You've got to be spot on there. But look, just his overall game, and it's been, you know, his form has been up and down a little bit in the last year, and there's certain people in France would be saying Jaminet should start, probably deserves to start instead of him. But and when you play Toulouse or France, it's always about Dupont, Intimac. How do you stop them? More so Dupont, to be fair, but Intimac has to always to be watched. You can never switch off, so the quality is there. And look, I wouldn't be kind of looking for any sort of vulnerabilities in France and saying, well, Intimac hasn't had a brilliant season.
As long as he does it again during the World Cup when they're playing us, that'd be very important. Then we'd be happy. Come here, the draw is wild, like hard to fathom on every
the draw.
Yeah,
it's the structure has changed for the Champions Cup next year again. They're gone back to, you know, the pools last year, and the last couple of seasons were 12 teams, and it was quite confusing. There's a little bit less confusion there. A bit of change again, and obviously the draw was made on Wednesday, so it's four groups of 6, which is you're making up your 24, and 4 of those teams out of that 6 will qualify for the round 16. I have a problem with that a little bit, in a sense that
jeopardy.
Well, look, if there's 6 teams in your group and you know 4 of you are going to get out of it,
have you to win more than one game in that context?
Well, if you look at last year's knockout stages, both Montpellier and Ulster got through to the round 16, winning 1 game out of 4 matches, which for me, only 2 teams did that. The year before, there was more teams did it. There was, I think it could have been 3 that got through, winning 1 game. But look, I think what we did see last year in the Champions Cup was incredible. The knockout stages were unbelievable. A lot of the pool games were very good, but there was certain games. Everybody remembers Gloucester coming to Dublin. it was. The towel was kind of thrown in the way, and I hate that for any team doing that.
It was get over after about 20
back
minutes.
When I played, and when the competition was very intense, and it was 6 pools of 4. You had. At times it was, some of the French teams just couldn't do it on both fronts, and you'd have an odd game here and there where they would put out a second string team after round 3, maybe when they've lost the first 2. They're kind of really throwing the towel in. I think there's just opportunities here for teams to go second string a bit. Look, player welfare and all that, it's hard to kind of do it, but if you're taking 20 players out of a squad and putting in a new 20 and sending them to play a game, it just frustrates me a little bit. But I think it's also a little bit confusing that you have a team in your group that you don't play against from the same league. So, for example, for Munster, it's Glasgow who are in their group, and they don't play Glasgow. They play the other 4 teams.
Leinster and Stormers.
Yeah, they don't play the Stormers because they're in the same league. I get the logic of it, and I understand it. It took me a little bit of time to understand that. But the 4 highest ranked clubs in each pool will qualify for the knockout. So
it's a bit daft. The under 20s, it's sort of come out of nowhere, but the World Championship start tomorrow. South Africa. They're playing against England. We've watched this team during the Six Nations, and they're off the charts good. There's a lot of really recognisable names in the team as well, including Evan O'Connell, nephew of the great one, who didn't start. I certainly didn't start most of the games, if I remember rightly, during the.
Yeah, he was on the bench for a fair bit of that, coming off the bench for a lot of the games in the Six Nations.
Has the group?
We haven't seen an under 20s championship for a couple of years because of COVID.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for this team to see if they can kind of have they physically got better, stronger, have they improved technically. Richie Murphy's done a great job, back-to-back Grand Slams.
Have they shot at winning it?
You just don't know. It's hard to analyse, what Australia will bring, what New Zealand will bring, what Argentina will possibly could bring. England have an ability. They have a very big physical side. You just don't know. South Africa themselves, so that's the real measure. Ireland play England first up, which is a very tough game tomorrow, and then they play Australia on Thursday, and then Fiji a couple of days later. So it's a little bit of the unknown. Obviously, all Ireland can control is themselves here, in the sense that they have a very good platform to build on. And I think listening to a lot of the players the last couple of days and seeing some of the press stuff, they're all talking about improvement and building on what they did in the Six Nations. But it's a very, very dangerous game for anybody thinking that the 20s will just turn up tomorrow and it'll be a foregone conclusion that they'll beat England. I think what they did very well against England in the game in Cork to win the Grand Slam was defensively they stopped a big powerful side from getting over the gain line. There's a couple of times England kind of got some brilliant tries in that game, but one thing about this side is they're tenacious, they're aggressive, and they're confident in what they do. And when you've someone like Sam Prendergast at 10 who's pretty gifted, I think the power that they have up front is very impressive. I think they have a very structured, their set piece is very good, but they play a lot as well. So they have a great variety to their game, and I saw that. I did a good few of the 20s games, and obviously watched them all during the Six Nations. The first game, when I think back over in Wales, they kind of struggled a little bit at times, and it looked like Wales were going to cut them apart at times, and each time they went up the field they were ruthless in getting a maul try or getting their forwards dominance, and then they kicked on the second half and they won that game convincingly. So there's some really good players in this side who I think are going to go on and play with their provinces and have a real impact in professional rugby.
When you look at the team, Quinny, like aside from maybe Ruan Quinn, who played a couple of games in the URC, I think, for Munster, and Prendergast obviously got a couple of lineouts for Leinster. There's not many players there with senior experience, but as Richie Murphy made the point, they have a lot of experience of playing together, and they have
Conor Tierney has been involved with Leinster as well, and I think Andrew Osborne, Jamie Osborne's brother, he's a very good player as well. There might be one or two more. Henry McAleen might have been as well with Leinster. I think there's 8 of that group are gone into the Leinster Academy this year. They're very powerful players. Brian Gleeson is kind of this big physical specimen, number 8, played really well for big impact throughout the championship in the Grand Slam. He picked up a knock, probably hampered his training coming into this week, so he's on the bench. Evan O'Connell goes into the second row, and Dermot Mangan goes into the back row. He's a very versatile, powerful player as well. And I like, what got me during the Six Nations was that those 5, the 2 second rows and the back rows, how dynamic they were, how athletic they were, and how comfortable they were on the ball. I know, obviously, being a back row myself, I would always thought, if you get your back row making 10-15 carries each in a game, it gives you a lot of involvements, and these guys, I think, have a lot of involvements in the game. Gleeson on the bench, he's such a powerful, aggressive ball carrier, scored tries throughout the championship as well. So I think that's probably going to be the key in this championship for them. The front row, Gus McCarthy, the hooker, the captain, unbelievably dynamic and powerful as well. Great ball carrier.
We're very well stacked.
There's a lot of good players, but you don't. The one area I'd probably be, you just don't know. As I said, it's a little bit of the unknown what New Zealand, South Africa, Australia
they look very comfortable under pressure.
I think looking at this team, they're in a really good position to have a really good championship. Hopefully it starts well against England tomorrow.
You wanted to touch on the Wales pre-season training camp, the rigorousness of it, the madness of it, the wildness of it, and your own experiences of being in that environment and been pushed to the pin of your collar, the pre-season stuff.
It's always the toughest time. Most rugby players, I don't know about other sports, but certainly the rugby pre-season was always really difficult. It was that kind
because you'd let yourself loose, or because it was
no, well, you've 3 or 4 weeks off on your holidays, and then you're trying to enjoy your holidays, and that last weekend of we're back on Monday. The last weekend, I think it's kind of like going back to school. That feeling of, oh Jesus, we've got to face this on Monday, and you possibly have fitness testing to start on Monday morning, and it's a kind of dreaded weekend, that bit of anxiety that your reality, the holidays are over, but it's tough. And I watched, obviously, the Wales release footage of them going to an army camp somewhere in Wales, or it could have been in the UK, somewhere at the last week, where they were diving in and out of lakes and water and carrying logs up hills and all that kind of stuff, that army stuff, pulling themselves up ropes. And I saw Warren Gatlin in the videos, obviously talking about that, and it kind of brought back memories of going to Poland. In 2000. It was
cryotherapy.
Yeah, it was for cryotherapy. It was in Spala is where we were. Yeah, and it's a couple of hours outside of Warsaw, out in the countryside, in the middle of the woods. I think it was a mental and physical challenge. We went for 3 weeks the first time we went there, and we did an incredibly hard week where you're doing about 5-6 sessions a day. So your normal day would be up in the morning, you're monitored, weighed, urine sample, body fat test, in for breakfast, go and do maybe a weight session, then a cardio session, and then maybe a speed session. You've kind of 3 sessions before lunch. They're short enough. Then you do the cryotherapy, and you've probably 20-30 minutes on a bike. It's fairly intense. Anyway, you have lunch, and then you're out for the afternoon, where you're doing a weights hit again, probably a fitness hit, and maybe a run in the woods to finish your day, and then cryotherapy again. So very intense, shock the system. So your day is starting at 7 in the morning, you're kind of finishing, maybe sitting down for your dinner at 6:30, 7:15, absolutely shattered. Did that for the week. we broke for the first weekend and went to Krakow on the Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. Had a meal there. Krakow is a lovely city, and had a walk around there and a few drinks. Back in the bus Sunday morning, back to Spala again. You're driving in the dreaded long drive in the gate, and then we had another incredibly intense week. Players were starting to mentally wane a little bit, because it was hard going. You're doing a lot of sessions, and it's kind of that dreaded run in the evening, then at 6 or 6:15 up the woods, up around the hills for half an hour, and then like the second weekend we went to Auschwitz. We weren't mentally damaged enough, and this is no disrespect to anyone who's ever been affected by that, or anyone
team environment going to someplace like I've been there.
Look, it was really intriguing to go to Auschwitz and see, and like it was phenomenal to understand the history of the whole place and be there, and saw the way people were treated there. It was horrific, but I think we stayed a night there, and we had a few drinks again. Very limited. Nobody wanted to have drinks, and Getty was always a big believer of, if you have a hard week, have a few beers.
But everyone was burnt
out. We went back on the Sunday, and that was the one. Going back in that Sunday was like, God, we're facing this for a third week here. The idea of the breaks of Krakow and Auschwitz and go somewhere different was just get away on a Saturday night or see something different. The third week, again, it was supposed to be a full-on week for the whole week, and we did crazy stuff there, and it kind of, by Wednesday, I think the sessions went to maybe 1 or 2 sessions in the day, and by Friday was a half day, and Saturday was off, and then we stayed. But it brought back memories of that, of kind of, that type of mental, physical torture of 3 weeks.
And still doing the same sessions at the minute.
It's the hardest time of the year for man, and in fairness, all the thing, like Ireland could end up doing some stuff like that, and it pushes you to the limit, and that's where you're going to get the money in the bank, really, for the season ahead.
All right, you're going to be back on Monday. We'll be looking back in that U20 game, I'm sure, and plenty more besides. Thanks a million for coming in.